I sat quietly beside the bed, watching Emily, my wife, as she rested. She was overdue, and each day seemed to stretch endlessly, a quiet anticipation hanging in the air. "Emily," I whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. She stirred, her eyes slowly opening. "How long have you been sitting there?" she asked, her voice tinged with sleep. "Long enough to remember why I fell in love with you," I replied, trying to infuse some lightness into the moment. She smiled, but it was shadowed with unease. "I just wish Margaret would let us have these last few days to ourselves," she said, a hint of frustration in her tone. Margaret, my mother-in-law, had always been a thorn in our side, particularly for Emily. I had witnessed her harsh treatment and unkind words towards Emily over the years, each incident casting a long shadow over our lives. "I spoke to her yesterday," I said, recalling the difficult conversation. "Told her we needed space, especially with the baby coming. The midwife was clear about the stress being bad for both of you." Emily's expression tightened. "And how did she take it?" "About as well as you'd expect. But I was firm. This time is about us, our new family." Her hand found mine, her grip tight. "Thank you," she said, her eyes moist. "I just can't handle her right now, not with the baby so close." "I know," I reassured her, holding her hand firmly. "I'll take care of it." We sat together, the unspoken history of Margaret's behavior between us. From demeaning comments to more overt acts of hostility, the impact on Emily was profound. But in that moment, with the gentle morning light around us, I felt a renewed determination. I was ready to protect Emily and our soon-to-be-born child, no matter what it took. As Emily fell back into a light sleep, my thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a car outside. Peering through the window, my heart sank at the sight of Margaret's car in the driveway. She had come uninvited, as was her habit. Taking a deep breath, I stood up. It was time to confront what lay ahead. As I descended the stairs to confront Margaret, my mind raced back through the years, replaying the myriad of ways she had inflicted pain upon Emily. It was like flipping through a dark photo album, each memory a snapshot of cruelty. Emily was 16 when I first met her. Even then, Margaret's shadow loomed large over her life. I remember a high school dance where Emily's hair had been roughly chopped off, an uneven bob that she tried to hide under a hat. "Mom thought it would look better short," she had whispered to me, her eyes downcast. That was Margaret, always asserting control, even over Emily's appearance. The abuse wasn't just physical. It was the constant gaslighting, the relentless undermining of Emily's reality. Margaret, aided by David and Alex, would spin tales, weaving false narratives that left Emily questioning her own sanity. They were a united front against her, a family that seemed to relish in her confusion and pain. One particular incident stood out in my mind. It was a family dinner, a supposed celebration of Emily's promotion at work. Instead of congratulations, Margaret had spent the evening belittling Emily's achievements, comparing her unfavorably to Alex, the golden child. "You might have a fancy job, but Alex has real skills," she had said, her words dripping with disdain. It was more than just words. There were the unannounced visits, the unwanted gifts that felt more like invasions, the blatant disrespect of our space and privacy. They would sneak into our house when we were out, going through our things, leaving a trail of discomfort and unease in their wake. Their treatment of Alex was a stark contrast. Nearly 40, he lived a life devoid of responsibility or consequences, his every need catered to by Margaret. He was a bully, both physically and verbally abusive, not just to Emily, but to his own parents. Yet, in Margaret's eyes, he could do no wrong. These memories fueled my resolve as I opened the front door. Margaret stood there, her expression one of feigned concern. "Margaret," I greeted her, my tone measured. "What brings you here today?" "I just wanted to see how Emily is doing. You know, with the baby coming and all," she said, her voice dripping with insincerity. "I've told you, Emily needs rest and space. Your visits are stressing her out." Margaret's face twisted into a scowl. "I'm her mother. I have every right to be here." "Not when your presence is harmful." "We've discussed this," I said, standing firm. She huffed, her eyes flashing with anger. "You're keeping me from my daughter and my grandchild." "I'm protecting my family, Margaret. That's my right." As she turned and stormed off, I knew this was far from over. But for now, I had drawn a line. one that I hoped would shield Emily and our child from the shadows of her family's past. The days following my confrontation with Margaret were tense, filled with a silence that was both welcome and foreboding. Emily, sensing the undercurrents, often asked if everything was all right. Each time I assured her it was, not wanting to add to her stress. But the truth was, things were far from all right. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the edge of something inevitable and potentially explosive. Margaret's visits had stopped, but her presence loomed like a dark cloud over our home. One afternoon, while Emily rested upstairs, I heard a knock at the door. Bracing myself for another round with Margaret, I was surprised to find David standing there, his eyes downcast. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, leading him into the living room. The tension was palpable as he sat down, his hands fidgeting in his lap. "It's about Alex," he began, his voice strained. "Margaret doesn't see it, but he's out of control." I listened, my heart heavy, as David recounted recent incidents of Alex's aggression. He spoke of unprovoked outbursts, of physical altercations that left both him and Margaret bruised and shaken. It was a side of Alex I had seen glimpses of, but never to this extent. "He needs help," David concluded, his eyes meeting mine. "But Margaret won't hear of it. She says we're imagining things, that Alex is just spirited." The revelation was jarring, yet not entirely surprising. The family's denial of Alex's behavior, their refusal to acknowledge the damage he caused, was a pattern long established. "I agree, he needs help," I said. "But if Margaret won't see it—" David nodded, a look of resignation on his face. "I just thought you should know, for Emily's sake." After he left, I sat alone, processing the conversation. The situation was more complex than I had realized. It wasn't just Margaret's treatment of Emily. It was the entire family dynamic, a toxic environment that enabled and excused Alex's behavior. I knew then that protecting Emily and our child meant more than just keeping Margaret at bay. It meant acknowledging the brokenness of her family, and perhaps accepting that some fractures were beyond repair. That night, as I lay beside Emily, her hand resting on her swollen belly, I felt a resolve harden within me. Whatever it took, I would shield them from the storm that was brewing, even if it meant cutting ties with a family that was drowning in its own dysfunction. In the days that followed the family gathering, Emily and I talked long into the nights, unraveling the years of manipulation and control exerted by her family. It was a painful process, each conversation unearthing more of the buried trauma she had endured. One evening, as we sat in the living room, Emily's phone buzzed with a message. It was from her cousin, someone we rarely heard from. The text was brief but jarring. "Heard what happened at the dinner. I'm sorry. You deserve better." This simple message from an unexpected source was like a small crack in a dam, and slowly the truth began to seep through. Over the next few days, more messages arrived, each one shedding light on the false narratives that Margaret and her family had spun about us. "We always wondered why you seemed so distant at family events," one read. "I heard your mom talking about how difficult you were, but it never added up," said another. Each message was a revelation, peeling back the layers of deceit we had been enmeshed in. It became increasingly clear that Margaret's influence extended far beyond what we had imagined, tainting our relationships and reputation within the wider family. The most damning revelation came from an unexpected source. David, in a rare moment of candor, confided in me about the extent of Alex's hold over the family. "He's threatened us, you know," David admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "If we don't do as he says, he becomes violent. We're afraid of him." This confession was a chilling insight into the dysfunction at the heart of Emily's family. Alex, enabled and protected by Margaret, had become a tyrant in his own home, his actions unchecked and excused. As these truths came to light, Emily's resolve hardened. "We can't be part of this anymore," she said one night, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "It's not just about us now, it's about our child. I won't let them grow up in the shadow of this madness." I held her close, my own emotions a tumult of anger, sadness, and protective fierceness. "We'll start anew," I promised. "We'll build our own family, free from all this." The decision to cut ties with her family was not an easy one for Emily, but it was necessary. We began the process of disentangling our lives from theirs, each step a move towards freedom and healing. As we prepared for the birth of our child, I felt a weight lifting from our shoulders. We were stepping out of the shadows into a future we would shape on our own terms. The day our child was born was a day of mixed emotions. As I held our baby for the first time, looking into those innocent eyes, I felt a surge of love and protectiveness unlike anything I had ever known. But lurking in the back of my mind was the knowledge of the confrontation that awaited us. Emily, exhausted but radiant, cradled our baby gently. "We did it," she whispered, her eyes shining with tears. "We have our family now." I nodded, my heart swelling with pride and love. But as we basked in the joy of our new arrival, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending conflict. Margaret had made it clear she expected to be a part of our child's life, but after everything, that was impossible. In the days that followed, as we adjusted to our new life, the reality of our situation became increasingly clear. Margaret's attempts to insert herself into our lives intensified. She called repeatedly, each message a mix of sweet talk and veiled threats. The final straw came one afternoon when we found a pile of gifts outside our door, all from Margaret. Among them was a note, "To my grandchild, who I will see, no matter what." That night, Emily and I sat down and made the decision. We would go completely no contact with her family. It was the only way to protect our child and ourselves from the cycle of abuse and manipulation. The process was painful, filled with legal consultations and emotional discussions. But with each step, I felt a sense of liberation, as if we were shedding the weight of years of oppression. As I watched Emily with our baby, her laughter free and unburdened, I knew we had made the right choice. We were starting anew, creating a family built on love, respect, and safety. Our journey was not without its challenges. There were moments of doubt, of fear that we had severed ties with the only family Emily had ever known. But in those moments, we found strength in each other and in the love we had for our child. We moved to a new home, a place untainted by the past. Here, in this space of our own making, we began to heal. Our child grew, surrounded by love and free from the shadows that had once loomed so large. In this new dawn, we found peace. We had stepped out of the darkness and into a future of our own choosing. Our family, though small, was a fortress against the turmoil we had left behind. As I looked at Emily and our child, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. We had weathered the storm, and in its wake, we had found something precious, a life of our own, filled with hope and endless possibilities.
You're no use if you're frail. I try to eat a lot, but I just can't seem to gain weight. You don't have to force yourself to eat. Well, just managing to stay alive is good enough. Even when I fell ill, my mother never worried about me. It was always about whether I was useful or not. I've always felt judged in that way. My name is Mandy. I'm a 29-year-old housewife. My husband Kevin, also my age, was my classmate from middle school. He started a business young and is now a successful entrepreneur. Kevin was the one who gently reached out to me when I was going through my hardest times. Since middle school, Kevin and his parents, who were thrilled about our marriage, have always been concerned about me. Though I am happy now, I was treated harshly by my parents since childhood. That started when my mother died shortly after giving birth to me. It can't be helped. My parents are getting old, and they can't take care of a baby now. My sister never thought she'd pass away first. Are you saying I should raise a child that isn't even related to me by blood? Don't say that. We're having trouble having our own children. So let's think of her as our own. I was actually the child of my father's sister. Therefore, my father was technically my uncle. And there was no blood relation with my mother. Married for 5 years, my parents, unable to have children of their own, decided to raise me in place of my biological mother, who died soon after giving birth to me. This child has a fever again. I'm busy and now I need to go to the hospital. What a hassle. She is frail. My sister was never like this. It seems I was born weak and often fell ill. 2 years after taking me in, my parents finally had their own child. Who would have thought I could have a child? We wouldn't have needed your sister's child then. What a waste of time and money. Calm down, don't say that. When we took in Mandy, we never thought we'd be blessed with our own child. My sister Rebecca was smart and excelled academically from a young age. As a child, I adored my newborn sister and took great care of her. We remained close as we grew up. Rebecca bore the weight of our parents' expectations and was subjected to accelerated education from elementary school. Naturally intelligent, she absorbed knowledge like a highly absorbent sponge and maintained top grades through high school. Eventually, she was admitted to a prestigious science university. Rebecca, congratulations on your acceptance to the university. You've studied so hard, huh? Let's make today's dinner a celebration. I told my sister, expressing my congratulations. Well, thank you, Mandy, but we are supposed to go out to a restaurant today. Oh, I see. Then, go and enjoy some delicious food. Aren't you coming with us? I can't eat much at once, and I eat slowly. I'd just get scolded by Mom again. It's always like this for you. It's really terrible. Rebecca knew that I was not her real sister but her cousin. As I grew up, I naturally came to understand this. And our parents never hid my background from me. After a while, my parents took Rebecca and headed to the restaurant. Make sure you've cleaned up the bathroom. Don't take a shower before us, okay? It's decided that one of us should use the bathroom first. Okay, I got it. I saw the three of them off and settled for leftovers in the fridge for dinner. Being frail, I often missed school. Because of this, I wasn't allowed to go to university, as missing classes would be a waste of tuition. Unable to work outside, I ended up doing most of the housework instead. Although it got late, all I could do was wait for their return. My parents and Rebecca came back hours later. Come on, behave yourselves. You both drank too much. My parents said they drank too much wine, and both slumped at the entrance. Looking down at them, Rebecca said exasperatedly, seriously? You drank too much. In the end, it's just a nuisance to me. What kind of celebration dinner is that? Then, turning to me, she handed me a small white box and said, I bought a cake at the restaurant. Let's eat it together. Rebecca suggested that it was fine to let our parents sleep off their drunkenness there, and led me into the living room. After a while, our parents woke up at the entrance. Hey! Why didn't you carry us inside? My still slurring mother shouted from the entrance. As I hurried over, Rebecca followed and said to her, It's inefficient to move drunk people around. Wherever you take them, they'll just sleep. Wouldn't they realize their folly if they woke up where they first lost consciousness? Right? My parents, speechless, instead told me to prepare something to eat. I made some simple soup. They complained that the taste was bland, and the soup was too watery. As it was always like that, I didn't take it to heart. By the way, how much did you earn this month? I'm frail and can't work outside, so I've been working from home instead. I felt the pressure to contribute something to the household. I was saving bit by bit, thinking I needed to leave this house soon. Not much yet, maybe about $400. That's just pocket money. If only you could work outside too. Rebecca's education will cost us more now. I'll take out student loans for my tuition. I'll work part-time, too. Relieved by Rebecca's words, my parents seemed a bit comforted. After starting university, Rebecca indeed borrowed student loans and worked hard at her part-time jobs. Even when she came home late, she always studied. I supported her secretly. Eventually, Rebecca excelled and smoothly advanced to graduate school and found a job. Around that time, an incredible incident came to light. "What did you spend it on?" my father asked grimly, interrogating my mother. "That's this idol I liked. I promised to follow him to England." "What idol?" My father was furious, not understanding her words. Essentially, my mother had been infatuated with a UK pop star for a long time and had poured a considerable amount of money into it. Her feelings had exploded after saving for years, thinking about our tuition. That's because Rebecca said she'd go to university on a scholarship. So I thought a little spending would be okay. I was there with my mouth shut while they talked. However, my mother then turned to me and said, "If you had properly worked and brought in money, this wouldn't have happened." I felt unfairly blamed, but because of my frailty, I couldn't leave the house much and I couldn't talk back. Then, a while later, it was discovered that my father had hidden debts too. The amount was considerable, running into a few tens of thousands of dollars. And even Rebecca accused him fiercely. "There's no point in asking, but what did you spend it on? If it's pointless to ask, then don't ask me." "Well, please don't." My father had never seemed so diminished. "Well, it might be something really bad." Rebecca said that to me, but I didn't quite understand what she meant. "Hopefully, no children that Dad made outside come knocking." Infidelity. That's what she meant by really bad. In about half a year, our parents' debts amounted to a few tens of thousands. They couldn't blame each other, so things started to calm down. But the debt didn't disappear. Thinking about what to do, my parents said something shocking. "We've decided to sell this house. Rebecca will live with us. But Mandy, you have to make it on your own from now on." I couldn't hide my surprise at their words. "It can't be helped, can it? You don't work, even after all we've done for you." I was doing some work from home, earning a modest amount to contribute to the household. However, to my parents, I wasn't their real child, so they could say such cruel things. Rebecca was furious like a raging fire at their words. "I will never forgive them for driving you out, Mandy." That night, I had a long discussion with her. A few days later, I left the house, dragging my heavy luggage. I was heading to the bus stop when a car pulled up beside me. "Isn't that Mandy?" It was Kevin, who is now my husband. Knowing I was heading to the bus stop, he offered me a ride in his car. "You said you were frail, right? Carrying such heavy luggage. Where are you going?" "Well, I don't want to hear if it's to a boyfriend's place." I shook my head vigorously and explained everything that had happened. Eventually, Kevin drove me to the cheap hotel in the city where I was planning to stay, listening to my story all the while. Even if they are step-parents, to drive out their daughter? That's a terrible story. Kevin said that, and during my stay at that hotel, he took me out to eat almost every day. After I left, my parents sold our house and made my sister take out a mortgage for a new apartment. It's a relief that Rebecca works at a famous company. We got the mortgage easily. And now we can live in such a lovely apartment in a prime location in the city center. In exchange, I've taken on a huge debt. Well, I will do some part-time work at least. Well, there's a new restaurant nearby that opened today. Let's try it out. We have money from selling the house. By driving me out and selling the house, my parents paid off their debts. After losing their home, they depended on Rebecca working at a famous company. They splurged luxuriously, and after paying off their debts, they seemed to have spent the remainder without thinking about the future. When their pockets were empty, they started counting on Rebecca's bonus. There's nothing left. What do you mean nothing? Isn't it bonus season? Our company is in trouble. Rebecca informed her parents and added, they're accepting voluntary early retirements. I might not qualify since I haven't been there long. But if I'm going to resign, I might as well get some money. The parents turned pale. Rebecca, what about the home mortgage? Of course, it'll become unpayable, so I'm planning to sell this place. What? What about us then? Are you going to rent an apartment somewhere? Then you have to take us with you. That's right. You need to do that. Since we're unemployed, we can't rent a place ourselves. Listening quietly to her parents' selfish reasoning, Rebecca slowly informed them. I worked part-time while attending college. And I've paid off most of my student loans with the money I earned. If my voluntary resignation is accepted and I receive a lump sum, I plan to enter medical school to become a doctor. She continued, having also found a place where she could work and live. Oh no, what about us then? Right. What about Mandy? She had some earnings too, right? Now that it's come to this, we must somehow get her to earn. Rebecca looked at her parents with a cold gaze and then smiled slyly. I received a call from my parents. They asked if I was doing well, or why I hadn't contacted them, always saying whatever they wanted. Mom, I'm currently. As I was about to speak, Kevin took the phone. After introducing himself, he said, Mandy is currently staying at my place. We are considering marriage. And currently. Before he could finish, my mother interrupted. Kevin. A soccer player from middle school? You were so popular, why would you be with Mandy? For a while, my mother chatted carelessly, but eventually, she fell silent after hearing Kevin's words. Our wedding is next month. We've already registered our marriage. So she's now my wife, and we won't be able to provide any support. I didn't hear anything about a marriage. After all we've done raising you. You didn't even bother to report something so important. In a fit of frustration, my mother apparently threw a tantrum. Wait, didn't Mandy tell Rebecca? Rebecca said she would tell the parents herself. Upon hearing Kevin's words, my mother turned and glared at my sister standing behind her. Rebecca had been in constant contact with me. When I confided to her about my relationship with Kevin, she immediately went to speak with him. She insisted that if Kevin truly loved me, he should register the marriage right away. If Kevin had refused, Rebecca was ready to come and get me herself. She was worried that once she could no longer take care of our parents, they would turn to me next. Later, Rebecca's application for voluntary resignation was accepted at her workplace, and she received her early retirement payment. The company wanted to retain such a young and capable employee, but Rebecca was firm in her decision. The apartment she shared with our parents was in a desirable and new location, so it quickly found a buyer. After clearing the mortgage debt, Rebecca applied to medical school and was admitted. Now, she's studying at medical school, living on site, and working part-time while aspiring to become a doctor. I want to be a doctor who can help people with frail bodies like you, Mandy, Rebecca said, determined. At the same time, our parents went to ask Kevin and his parents for a loan. Despite Kevin's warning, they came over with pale faces, having nowhere else to turn. We had been looked after by my wife's brother for a while, but we were kicked out from there too. We raised Mandy, so we have some rights to ask for help, right? You must have some money? Kevin's parents, while serving delicious food at their home, said softly. Mandy is Kevin's beloved wife, and we want to protect her. But they looked sternly at my parents and firmly rejected any further involvement. Intimidated by the attitude of Kevin's parents, my own parents shrunk back in uncertainty. Kevin's father then handed them a sum of money and said, "This money is a token of compassion. Use it to rent an apartment and start working to support yourselves. Mandy and Rebecca have both decided their paths and found happiness, right? Now it's your turn. Earn your own keep and manage your life after retirement." My parents were clearly told by Kevin's parents never to come back, and they were driven out of the house. Both looked pale and drained of blood. They probably never thought that they would be kicked out of a home like they had once done to me. If they could understand even a little of how I felt back then, there might be some hope for their future. Either way, after years of squandering, they'll need to continue working hard in their old age. From then on, I continued working from home to support my sister's dream of becoming a doctor. Instead of our parents, I diligently delivered homemade meals to her, and she was always delighted. Like this, I often visit her to support her dreams. Now, with a kind husband and supportive in-laws, and being able to support my sister, I am very happy.
The shrill ring of my phone pierced the silence of my office, making me jump. I glanced at the caller ID and felt my stomach knot. Patricia! My mother-in-law's name on the screen was enough to send a wave of dread through me. I took a deep breath, steeling myself before answering. "Hello, Patricia," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Olivia, dear," her saccharine tone oozed through the speaker. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." I bit back a sarcastic response. Of course, she was interrupting. She always did. "What can I do for you?" I asked instead. "Well, I was just wondering if you'd picked up Connor's dry cleaning yet. You know how he likes his shirts pressed just so for work." I closed my eyes, counting to 5 in my head. "Patricia, I'm at work. Connor can pick up his own dry cleaning." "Oh, Olivia," she tutted. "A good wife takes care of these things. You wouldn't want Connor to look unprofessional, would you?" Before I could respond, my office door opened. Ethan, my colleague, poked his head in. He mouthed, "Meeting in 5, and I nodded gratefully. "I have to go, Patricia. I have a meeting." "Of course, dear. We'll talk later about the dry cleaning." I hung up, feeling a headache brewing behind my eyes. Ethan lingered in the doorway, concern etched on his face. "Everything okay?" he asked. I forced a smile. "Just the usual mother-in-law drama." Ethan shook his head. "I don't know how you put up with it. You're a saint, Olivia." If only he knew. If only anyone knew the half of what I dealt with daily. I gathered my notes for the meeting, trying to push thoughts of Patricia out of my mind. As we walked to the conference room, Ethan leaned in. "Hey, a bunch of us are going for drinks after work. Want to join?" The offer was tempting, a chance to unwind, to be around people who actually appreciated me, but I knew what awaited me at home if I was late. "I can't," I said, regret coloring my voice. "Connor's expecting me." Ethan's disappointment was palpable, but he nodded understandingly. The meeting dragged on, but my mind was elsewhere. I thought about Connor, about how he'd react if he knew the truth about my job, about how much I really made. It was a secret I'd kept for years, partly out of habit, partly out of fear of Patricia's reaction. As I drove home that evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Connor. "Mom's coming over for dinner. Pick up some wine?" I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white. Of course, Patricia was coming over. She always found a way to insert herself into our lives. I walked into our house, arms laden with groceries and the requested wine. The sound of Patricia's laughter drifted from the kitchen, along with the aroma of something burning. "Olivia, dear," Patricia called out. "We're in here. I'm just showing Connor how to properly cook a roast. The poor boy's been living off your attempts at cooking for far too long." I set the bags down, taking a moment to compose myself before entering the kitchen. Connor stood by the stove, looking lost, while Patricia fussed over a blackened piece of meat. "Hi, honey," Connor said, giving me a quick peck on the cheek. "Mom's teaching me how to cook." I forced a smile. "That's great. I brought wine." Patricia clucked her tongue. "Oh, Olivia, you know Connor prefers beer with his dinner. Wine is so pretentious." I felt something snap inside me. The stress of the day, the constant criticisms, it all came to a head. "Actually," I said, my voice tight, "I brought the wine for me. I think I'm going to need it." The kitchen fell silent. Connor looked bewildered, while Patricia's eyes narrowed. I knew I'd pay for that comment later, but for now, I savored the small victory. As I poured myself a generous glass of wine, I couldn't help but wonder how long I could keep living like this. Something had to give. And soon. I never imagined my life could get worse, but fate has a twisted sense of humor. It was a crisp Sunday morning when Connor dropped the bombshell. "Honey," he said, his voice hesitant, "Mom's lease is up, and she's having trouble finding a new place. I told her she could stay with us for a while." The mug I was holding slipped from my grasp, shattering on the kitchen floor. Coffee splattered everywhere, but I barely noticed. "You did what?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Connor rushed to clean up the mess, avoiding my gaze. "It's just temporary, Olivia. She's family. We can't leave her without a place to stay." I stood there, frozen, as the reality of the situation sank in. Patricia, living with us. The thought made me physically ill. "When?" I managed to ask. "She's moving in today," Connor replied, still not meeting my eyes. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Connor practically sprinted to answer it, leaving me alone in the kitchen, surrounded by broken ceramic and spilled coffee. Patricia's voice floated through the house, saccharine sweet. "Oh, Connor, darling! Thank you so much for this. You're such a good son." I took a deep breath, plastered on a fake smile, and went to greet my new housemate. The next few days were a blur of passive-aggressive comments and thinly veiled insults. Patricia had taken over our guest room, but her presence seemed to fill every corner of the house. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Patricia sauntered into the kitchen. "Olivia, dear," she said, her tone dripping with false concern, "don't you think those pants are a bit tight? A woman your age should be more mindful of her figure." I gripped the knife I was using to chop vegetables tighter. "My pants are fine, Patricia," I said through gritted teeth. She tsked. "If you say so, dear. I just worry about Connor. Men can be so easily tempted when their wives let themselves go." Before I could retort, Connor walked in. "Something smells great," he said, oblivious to the tension. Patricia beamed at him. "I was just giving Olivia some fashion advice. You know how I worry about you two." Connor laughed. "Mom, you don't need to worry about us. Olivia and I are fine." I turned back to the stove, fighting back tears of frustration. We were not fine. We were far from fine. The next morning, I woke up to find Patricia rearranging our living room. She had moved all the furniture and was hanging new curtains. "Patricia," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "what are you doing?" She turned, a picture of innocence. "Oh, Olivia, I hope you don't mind. This room needed a woman's touch. It was so drab before." I closed my eyes, counting to 10. When I opened them, Patricia was still there, smiling that infuriating smile. "This is my house," I said quietly. "You can't just change things without asking." Patricia's smile faltered for a moment before returning full force. "Don't be silly, dear. This is Connor's house too, and he loves what I've done with the place." As if on cue, Connor walked in. "Wow, Mom, the room looks great." I felt something inside me snap. Without a word, I grabbed my keys and stormed out of the house. I found myself in the parking lot at work, not even remembering the drive. Ethan was just arriving, and his face lit up when he saw me. "Olivia, what are you doing here on a Saturday?" I burst into tears, the stress of the past few days finally overwhelming me. Ethan rushed over, concern etched on his face. Hey, he said softly, pulling me into a hug. "What's wrong?" Through my sobs, I managed to explain the situation. Ethan listened, his face growing darker with each word. "Olivia," he said when I finished, "you can't keep living like this. It's not healthy. I nodded, wiping my eyes. I know, but what can I do? She's Connor's mother. Ethan looked at me, his eyes intense. You have options, Olivia, more than you realize. As I stood there in the parking lot, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe Ethan was right. Maybe I did have options, and maybe it was time I started exploring them. The weeks that followed Patricia's move-in were a living nightmare. Every morning, I'd wake up hoping it had all been a bad dream, only to hear her shrill voice echoing through the house. Today was no different. Olivia, Patricia called from downstairs. Connor's shirts need ironing. I gritted my teeth, counting to 10 before responding. I'm getting ready for work, Patricia. Connor can iron his own shirts. The sound of footsteps on the stairs made my heart race. Patricia appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of disapproval. A good wife takes care of her husband, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. But I suppose that's too much to ask of you. Before I could retort, Connor appeared behind his mother. It's okay, Mom, I can do it myself. Patricia turned to him, all sweetness and light. Oh, honey, you shouldn't have to. That's what wives are for. I felt something snap inside me. That's it, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I'm leaving for work. Don't wait up. I brushed past them both, ignoring Connor's confused calls. As I slammed the front door behind me, I felt a mixture of relief and guilt. Relief to be away from Patricia's constant criticism, guilt for leaving Connor to deal with her alone. At work, I threw myself into my projects, desperate for any distraction. Ethan noticed my frazzled state and cornered me in the break room. Olivia, he said gently, you can't keep going on like this. You look exhausted. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I know, Ethan, but what can I do? She's always there, always criticizing, always undermining me. Ethan's eyes hardened. You need to stand up for yourself. Tell Connor how you feel. I laughed bitterly. I've tried. He just doesn't see it. To him, she's just being helpful. As I spoke, my phone buzzed with a text from Connor. Mom wants to know what's for dinner. She says your cooking could use some work. I showed Ethan the message, my hands shaking with anger. He read it, his face darkening. That's it, he said firmly. You're coming home with me tonight. You need a break from all this. Part of me wanted to protest, to be the dutiful wife and go home. But a larger part, the part that was tired of being belittled and ignored, nodded in agreement. I texted Connor back. Working late, order takeout. Ethan's apartment was small but cozy, a stark contrast to the tension-filled house I'd left behind. As we sat on his couch, nursing glasses of wine, I felt myself relax for the first time in weeks. Thank you, I said softly. I didn't realize how much I needed this. Ethan smiled, his eyes warm. Anytime, Olivia. You deserve so much better than what you're getting at home. As the night wore on, I found myself opening up to Ethan in a way I hadn't with anyone in years. I told him about my secret career success, about the constant pressure from Patricia, about Connor's indifference. Why do you stay? Ethan asked, his voice gentle but probing. I stared into my wine glass, searching for an answer. I don't know anymore. Just then, my phone exploded with notifications, missed calls and texts from Connor and Patricia. I scrolled through them, my heart sinking with each message. Where are you? Mom's worried sick. How could you be so selfish? A good wife doesn't stay out all night. The last message made me see red. Without thinking, I dialed Connor's number. Olivia, he answered, his voice a mixture of relief and anger. Where the hell are you? I'm safe, I said, my voice steady despite the anger coursing through me. And I'm not coming home tonight. What? But Mom, I cut him off. No, Connor, not this time. I can't do this anymore. Your mother, your indifference, all of it. I'm done. As I hung up, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Ethan looked at me, a mixture of concern and admiration in his eyes. What now? He asked softly. I took a deep breath, feeling for the first time in years like I was in control of my own life. Now, I said, I start fighting back. The morning after my night at Ethan's, I returned home to face the music. As I stepped through the front door, the silence was deafening. Then, like a storm breaking, Patricia's voice rang out. Well, look who finally decided to grace us with her presence, she sneered from the living room. Connor sat beside her, his face a mask of disappointment and confusion. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. We need to talk, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Patricia scoffed. About your shameful behavior? I should say so. No, I replied, looking directly at Connor. About us, about this situation. Connor shifted uncomfortably. Olivia, can't we just forget about last night? Mom was worried sick. I felt my resolve hardening. No, Connor, we can't just forget. This isn't working. Your mother living here, her constant criticism, your indifference, it's killing me. Patricia stood up, her eyes flashing. How dare you, after everything we've done for you? I laughed bitterly. Done for me? You've done nothing but tear me down since the day I married Connor. The argument escalated quickly, voices rising, accusations flying. In the heat of the moment, I revealed my secret. You have no idea what I've sacrificed for this family, I shouted. I'm the one who's been supporting us. My job, my success, it's all been for us. The room fell silent. Connor stared at me, shocked. Patricia's face contorted with a mixture of disbelief and anger. What are you talking about? Connor asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Before I could respond, a wave of dizziness hit me. The room started to spin, and I felt my knees buckle. The last thing I heard was Connor calling my name as everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed, the steady beep of monitors filling the room. Ethan was by my side, concern etched on his face. What happened? I croaked, my throat dry. You collapsed at home, Ethan explained softly. Exhaustion and severe stress, the doctors said. You've been out for a day. I closed my eyes, the memories flooding back. Connor? Ethan's expression darkened. He was here earlier, left when I arrived. A nurse entered, checking my vitals. Mrs. Thompson, how are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck, I admitted. She nodded sympathetically. That's to be expected. Your body's been under extreme stress. You need rest and a major lifestyle change. As she left, Ethan took my hand. Olivia, this can't go on. You're killing yourself. I nodded, tears welling up. I know, but what can I do? It's my home, my marriage. Is it worth your life? Ethan asked gently. Before I could answer, the door opened. Connor walked in, looking haggard. His eyes narrowed when he saw Ethan. Could you give us a minute? He asked, his tone clipped. Ethan squeezed my hand before leaving, throwing a concerned glance over his shoulder. Connor sat in the chair Ethan had vacated. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice a mixture of hurt and anger. About your job, about how you were feeling. I sighed, feeling drained. Would you have listened? Every time I tried to talk about your mother, you dismissed my concerns. Connor ran a hand through his hair. I didn't realize. That's the problem, Connor, I said softly. You never realized. You never saw how much I was struggling. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. What do we do now? He asked. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in years I saw clearly. I saw a man who, despite his good intentions, had consistently chosen his mother over his wife, a man who had stood by while I was belittled and broken down. I don't know, I replied honestly, but I know I can't go back to the way things were. I won't survive it. Connor nodded slowly, a look of resignation crossing his face. And your colleague, Ethan? He's been a friend when I needed one, I said firmly. Nothing more. As Connor left, promising to return later, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. For the first time in years, I was putting myself first. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Things had to change, and they had to change now. After a week in the hospital, I returned home with a mix of dread and determination. The house was eerily quiet as I stepped inside, my footsteps echoing in the hallway. Welcome back, Connor said, emerging from the kitchen. His voice was strained, the tension between us palpable. I nodded, unsure of what to say. The revelation of my financial success still hung in the air, unaddressed. Where's Patricia? I asked, dreading the answer. Connor sighed. In the guest room. She's not happy, I snorted. When is she ever? As if summoned by our conversation, Patricia appeared at the top of the stairs. Her eyes narrowed as she saw me. So the prodigal daughter-in-law returns, she sneered. I hope you're proud of yourself, worrying us all like that. I felt my blood begin to boil. Proud? Of being worked to the point of collapse? Of being constantly belittled and criticized in my own home? Patricia descended the stairs, her face a mask of indignation. How dare you? After everything we've done for you. Enough, Mom, Connor interjected, but his voice lacked conviction. I laughed bitterly. Everything you've done for me? You mean moving in uninvited? Criticizing my every move, making me feel worthless in my own home? Patricia's face reddened. I've only ever tried to help. It's not my fault you're so sensitive. But then again, what can we expect from someone with your background. The room fell silent. Connor's eyes widened in shock. What do you mean by that? I asked, my voice dangerously low. Patricia smirked, sensing she'd struck a nerve. Well, dear, it's no secret that you come from, shall we say, humble beginnings. No wonder you struggled to be a proper wife. You never had a good example, did you? I felt as if I'd been slapped. How dare you bring my parents into this? Mom, that's enough, Connor said, but Patricia was on a roll. It's the truth, isn't it? Your poor deceased parents. What would they think of you now? Lying about your job, neglecting your wifely duties. Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration and anger came pouring out. My parents would be proud of me, I shouted. They taught me to work hard, to stand up for myself. They loved me unconditionally, something you clearly know nothing about. Patricia gasped, clutching her chest in mock offense. Well, I never. No, you never. I cut her off. You never cared about anyone but yourself. You've manipulated Connor his entire life, and now you're trying to do the same to me. But I won't let you. Not anymore. I turned to Connor, who stood frozen, his eyes darting between his mother and me. Connor, I said, my voice shaking with emotion, I can't do this anymore. I won't live like this. It's her or me. The silence that followed was deafening. Connor opened his mouth, then closed it again at a loss for words. Patricia recovered first. Don't be ridiculous, Olivia. Connor would never choose you over his own mother. Would you, darling? Connor's lack of response was all the answer I needed. In that moment, I saw our entire marriage laid bare. Years of compromise, of putting everyone else's needs before my own, of slowly losing myself. I see, I said quietly. The calm that washed over me was almost frightening. Then I've made my decision. I walked past them both, heading for the stairs. Connor finally found his voice. Olivia, wait, where are you going? I paused, looking back at them. Patricia stood triumphant, while Connor looked lost and confused. I'm packing my bags, I said. I'm leaving. As I climbed the stairs, I heard Patricia's smug voice. Good riddance, you'll be back, begging for forgiveness. But I knew I wouldn't. For the first time in years, I felt free. The road ahead was uncertain, but anything was better than staying in this toxic environment. As I threw clothes into a suitcase, I made a silent promise to myself. No more compromising my worth, no more letting others dictate my life. It was time to reclaim my independence, my self-respect, and my happiness. The Olivia who walked out of that house was not the same one who had entered it years ago. She was stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever came next, alone if necessary. I stood in the lobby of the law firm, my heart pounding. This was it, the point of no return. I'd spent the last week in a hotel, ignoring Connor's calls and texts, steeling myself for this moment. As I rode the elevator to the 15th floor, I replayed the events that led me here, each floor bringing a new memory of hurt and disappointment. The receptionist ushered me into a plush office where a stern-faced woman sat behind an imposing desk. Mrs. Thompson, she greeted, gesturing for me to sit. I'm Margaret Winters. You're here to discuss divorce proceedings? I nodded, my throat suddenly dry. Yes, I can't continue in my marriage. As we discussed the details, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. This was the end of a chapter in my life, but also the beginning of a new one. Halfway through our meeting, my phone buzzed incessantly. Connor's name flashed on the screen. I silenced it, but the interruption had shaken me. Is everything all right? Margaret asked, her eyes sharp. I took a deep breath. Yes, it's just my husband. He doesn't know I'm here. Margaret's expression softened slightly. Mrs. Thompson, are you sure about this? Divorce is a big step. I'm sure, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. I can't live like this anymore. As we wrapped up the meeting, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Ethan. Olivia, where are you? Connor's here at the office looking for you. He seems really upset. My blood ran cold. How did Connor know where I worked? I'd always kept my job a secret from him and Patricia. I have to go, I told Margaret abruptly, gathering my things. I rushed out of the office, my mind racing. As the elevator descended, I tried to calm my nerves. What was Connor doing at my workplace? How much did he know? The doors opened, and I stepped into the lobby, only to come face to face with Connor and Patricia. Olivia, Connor said, his voice a mixture of relief and anger. What's going on? Where have you been? I stood my ground despite the urge to run. I told you, Connor, I'm leaving. I can't do this anymore. Patricia stepped forward, her eyes flashing. "Don't be ridiculous, Olivia. You're coming home with us right now." "No, I'm not," I said firmly. "I'm done letting you control my life." Connor looked bewildered. "Control your life? Olivia, what are you talking about?" I laughed bitterly. "You really don't see it, do you? How your mother has manipulated every aspect of our marriage, how you've always chosen her over me." "That's not true," Connor protested weakly. "Isn't it?" I challenged. "Then why are you here with her instead of coming to find me on your own?" Connor fell silent, and I saw a flicker of realization in his eyes. Patricia, sensing she was losing control, changed tactics. "Olivia, dear, we're just worried about you. You've been acting so strangely lately. Is it stress from work? Maybe you should take some time off." "My work is not the problem," I said, my voice rising. "My work is the only thing that's kept me sane. Do you want to know the truth, Connor? I'm the one who's been supporting us. My job, my success, it's all been for us, and you never even noticed." The lobby fell silent. Connor's face paled, while Patricia looked like she'd been slapped. What do you mean?" Connor stammered. I took a deep breath, years of pent-up frustration pouring out. "I mean that while you've been letting your mother run our lives, I've been working my way up in my career. I'm a senior executive now, Connor. I make 3 times what you do. And I've kept it a secret because I knew Patricia would find a way to use it against me, to make me feel small and insignificant like she always does." Patricia's face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful little—" "No," I cut her off. "I'm done being grateful for your abuse. I'm done pretending everything is fine when it's not. I'm filing for divorce, Connor. It's over." As I turned to leave, Connor grabbed my arm. "Olivia, please. We can work this out. I had no idea." I pulled away, tears stinging my eyes. "That's the problem, Connor. You never had any idea, and now it's too late." I walked out of the lobby, leaving Connor and Patricia standing there, shocked and silent. As I stepped into the sunlight, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I felt free. The days following my confrontation with Connor and Patricia were a blur of legal meetings and emotional upheaval. I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction. Ethan had been a rock, offering support without pushing for more. One evening, as I was leaving the office, my phone rang. Patricia's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "Olivia." Her voice was uncharacteristically soft. "We need to talk, please." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a nearby cafe. As I walked in, I saw her sitting alone, looking smaller and older than I remembered. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. I nodded, wary. "What do you want, Patricia?" She took a deep breath. "I want you to reconsider the divorce. Connor is devastated. I made mistakes, but surely we can work this out." I laughed bitterly. "Work it out? After years of your manipulation and Connor's indifference? It's too late for that." Patricia's eyes flashed with a familiar anger, but she quickly composed herself. "Olivia, be reasonable. Think about what you're giving up. The stability, the family." "The abuse?" I cut in. "The constant criticism? The feeling of never being good enough?" "I was trying to help," Patricia protested. "I only wanted what was best for Connor, for both of you." I shook my head. "No, Patricia, you wanted control. You wanted to keep Connor dependent on you and me in my place." Patricia's facade cracked. "And what's so wrong with that?" "I raised Connor. I know what's best for him. You're just some girl who wormed her way into his life." "I'm his wife," I snapped, my voice rising. "Or at least, I was. I loved him, supported him, built a life with him, and you couldn't stand it." Patricia leaned forward, her voice low and urgent. "Listen to me, Olivia. You don't understand what you're doing. Connor, he's not as strong as you think. He needs me. He needs us." Suddenly I understood. "This isn't about Connor at all, is it? It's about you. You're afraid of losing the lifestyle." Desperation turned to anger. "You ungrateful little bitch. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? By abandoning my son?" The cafe fell silent, all eyes on us. I felt a lifetime of pent-up emotions bubbling to the surface. "Done for me?" I said, my voice dangerously low. "You've done nothing but tear me down since the day I married Connor. You've criticized my cooking, my housekeeping, my career. You've manipulated Connor against me at every turn. And now you have the audacity to act like I owe you something?" Patricia stood up, her face red with rage. "You'll regret this, Olivia. You think you can just walk away? I'll make sure you lose everything in this divorce. Everything. I laughed, a sound that surprised even me. Go ahead and try, Patricia. I'm not afraid of you anymore. As I turned to leave, Patricia called out one last time. He'll never let you go, you know. Connor will fight this divorce every step of the way. I paused at the door, looking back at the woman who had made my life hell for so long. Then let him fight. I'm done being the victim in this story. Walking out of that cafe, I felt lighter than I had in years. The road ahead would be difficult, I knew that. But for the first time, I was ready to face it on my own terms. No more compromises, no more sacrifices. It was time to reclaim my life, whatever the cost. 6 months after my confrontation with Patricia, I stood in my new apartment, surrounded by boxes and the promise of a fresh start. The divorce had been finalized last week, and despite Connor's initial threats, it had gone smoother than I'd expected. My financial success had been my ace in the hole, leaving Patricia and Connor with no leverage. As I unpacked, my phone buzzed. It was Ethan. Hey, I answered, a smile in my voice. How's the unpacking going? He asked. Slowly but surely, I replied. Want to come over and help? There was a pause. Actually, I'm already outside your building. I brought dinner. My heart skipped a beat. Ethan had been a constant support throughout the divorce, but we'd kept things strictly platonic. Until now. I buzzed him up, suddenly nervous. As I opened the door, I saw Ethan standing there, holding takeout bags and wearing a hesitant smile. I hope this is okay, he said. I pulled him into a hug. It's more than okay. As we ate, sitting on boxes because I hadn't unpacked my furniture yet, Ethan filled me in on the office gossip. Apparently, my divorce and subsequent promotion had caused quite a stir. Oh, and you'll never guess who I saw today, Ethan said, his tone cautious. I raised an eyebrow. Who? Connor and Patricia. They were at the bank, looking pretty stressed. I felt a twinge of something. Not regret exactly, but a complex mix of emotions. How did they look? Ethan hesitated. Not great. Connor looked like he hadn't slept in days, and Patricia, well, she's definitely not living the high life anymore. I nodded, processing this information. Part of me felt a grim satisfaction, but another part felt an unexpected pang of sadness. Olivia, Ethan said softly, are you okay? I took a deep breath. You know what? I really am. For the first time in years, I feel free. Ethan reached out, taking my hand. You deserve to be happy, Olivia. You've been through so much. As I looked into his eyes, I felt a warmth I hadn't experienced in a long time. But before I could respond, my phone rang. It was Connor. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Olivia Connor's voice was strained. I need your help. I closed my eyes, steeling myself. What is it, Connor? It's Mom. She's not doing well. The stress of everything, it's taken a toll on her health. We can't afford her medical bills, and I don't know what to do. I felt a surge of conflicting emotions, anger at the audacity of him asking for help after everything, pity for Patricia's situation, and a strange sense of power, knowing I held their fate in my hands. Connor, I said, my voice steady, I'm sorry about Patricia's health, but I can't help you, not anymore. But Olivia? No, Connor, you and Patricia made your choices. Now you have to live with them, just like I had to live with the consequences of your actions for years. There was a long silence. Then, I understand. I'm sorry, Olivia, for everything. As I hung up, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The last tie to my old life had been severed. Ethan was watching me, concern etched on his face. Everything okay? I smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile. Yes, everything is finally okay. I stood up, pulling Ethan with me. Come on, help me unpack these boxes. I think it's time to start filling this new life with some happy memories. As we worked side by side, laughing and sharing stories, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road had been long and painful, but I had emerged stronger, wiser, and truly free. Patricia and Connor's downfall wasn't a victory to celebrate, but a reminder of the importance of independence and self-respect. And as I looked at Ethan, I saw the possibility of a future filled with mutual respect and genuine love. This was my new chapter, my fresh start. And for the first time in years, I was excited about what the future held. The woman who had entered that toxic marriage years ago was gone. In her place stood a stronger, more confident Olivia, ready to face whatever life threw her way. As night fell and the last box was unpacked, I stood at my window, looking out at the city lights. I was no longer Connor's wife or Patricia's daughter-in-law. I was just Olivia. And that, I realized, was more than enough.
I'm a 35-year-old male named Tom. I had a really dramatic past, but I'm really happy now. I want everyone to know about that period because of this. Nick, my younger brother, is exceptionally intelligent. In contrast to me, he was exceptionally intelligent and always achieved flawless grades in primary school without any study time. Our parents had high hopes that he would be accepted into one of the state's elite private middle schools. However, despite my best efforts, I did not study effectively and had below average grades. My grades didn't get any better despite my best efforts, and I consistently received a math score of about 50. Oh, why is your brother so stupid when Nick is so intelligent? By the time he reaches middle school, he will have lost all hope if his elementary arithmetic results are this low. It's simply pitiful. I'm doing my best, though. How can you say you did well with scores like this? I received a score of 70 in social studies. Quit being foolish. You would undoubtedly receive a perfect grade if you were making an effort. Perhaps you ought to learn from Nick. That is unfair. Ha! You're being reprimanded. You're so stupid, dude. I am capable of resolving these issues. Is 6th grade your actual grade? You might want to start anew in 1st grade. Every time my mother saw my test results, she became irate. She would be upset if I didn't show her my test results, therefore I didn't want to. I had no other option, and I was furious with my brother for making fun of me. Our parents lavished him with attention, and he behaved arrogantly. He simply considered making fun of me and showed me absolutely no respect. He didn't seem cute to me, and I wanted he would go away. But I felt as though I was the one who was unnecessary in this home. As a child, I was greatly affected by my parents' comments that it would be better if I wasn't around. After that, I attended middle school. Even though my courses were challenging, I was rather happy because I had made some wonderful friends. In particular, I began spending a lot of time with Jake, a classmate. I was a little jealous of his mom's affection for him, even though they were a single-parent family and led a simple life. When I visited Jake's mom, she always offered me snacks, even if she was exhausted. They weren't costly, but I was quite appreciative. She treated everyone equally and had a constant smile. She seemed so different from my parents, in my opinion. My mom handled the office job while my dad served as president of the company my parents owned. Despite being the son of a president, I never experienced love. Although I recalled having a reasonably comfortable upbringing, I believed they spent more money for my brother. When it came to field trip food, for example, there was a slight variation. My mother gave me a $1 bill when the school led us to purchase snacks up to $3, but my brother received a $10 bill. My brother seemed unconcerned, even though I believed I was not permitted to purchase so many food. Enjoying his role as king, he distributed snacks to every student in the class. I learned early on that material wealth isn't the only factor in pleasure, because I was raised with such partiality. My mother then revealed something startling to me over the summer break of my 3rd year of middle school. I intended to enroll in a summer course at a tutoring facility my friend frequented in order to strengthen my weak areas in science and arithmetic. I need a favor, Mom. The station has a tutoring center with a summer course. Attending the course does not require you to be a regular student, they claimed. You receive a discount if you enroll in 5 subjects. What? A course for the summer? Yes, I struggle with science and math. My friend informed me that taking all 5 topics is more cost-effective than just those 2. We're short on funds for it. We could spend the money on Nick instead of you, so it's a waste. Please release me. I'll put a lot of effort into studying. You don't need to study since you're going to quit school and get a job. Well done. You are no longer bound by your weak subjects. Wait, what do you mean? It indicates that you will leave school to work for our organization. Do you not understand? It's a waste of time and money to send you to high school. Instead, put in a lot of effort at work. No. I also want to attend high school. Dude, stop being so self-centered. You're upsetting Mom. Middle school is plenty for you because you're not that intelligent anyhow. You ought to work for us since you're a complete failure. Will you harm me in any way, Nick? Terrifying. Will you try anything on your younger brother? Enough. I hurried back to my room and banged the door to the living room because I was so angry. My brother embarrassed me, and Mom's words saddened me. I was unable to control my tears and even make decisions about my own future. Dad was stern and would scold me for even the smallest infractions. In retrospect, I believe my parents were poisonous and our family was dysfunctional. However, as a child, all I could do was cry, growing suspicious of my parents and hateful of my brother. In my 3rd year of middle school, winter arrived. I knew it was too late for me, so I just stared blankly at the skies as everyone else studied diligently for their high school admission examinations. Hey, I heard you're going to drop out and work? Yeah, my parents want me to join their company. Well, your dad is the president. Yeah, but they told me I wasn't worth sending to high school, that it would be a waste of money. That's difficult. I considered working immediately to support my mother. She overexerted herself and became ill. What, is your mom okay? The doctor advised her not to put herself under undue stress. She has a bad heart. Tom, it is awful. Don't appear so depressed. Let's demonstrate our abilities to them. Let's disprove those who think we're unworthy of dropping out. Let's put in a lot of effort and have faith that we will be rewarded eventually. You're correct. I apologize. I shouldn't pretend that I'm the only one who has issues. Everybody has challenges of their own. I know it's tough for you too, but don't give up no matter what. Yeah, I'll keep fighting. You too, Jake. Jake supported me despite his difficult circumstances, and I was appreciative. I was a little embarrassed since I had always felt that I was the only one going through hardship. I made the decision to work harder and maintain my optimism because I was determined not to let Jake outdo me. Perhaps good things will happen to me too someday. I chose to overlook the fact that my parents continued to treat me coldly and lavish my brother with attention. My brother finally quit bothering me when I stopped responding to his grating remarks. If I didn't answer, he probably thought it was no fun. As a recent middle school graduate, I began working at my parents' business in April. My father was unforgiving. He treated me like a rag and assigned me all of the difficult chores. He threw all of the work that had previously been done by other staff onto me. He simply yelled at me when I questioned him. You're still not getting it. You fool, how many times must I teach you? But no justifications. You're useless because of this. Simply complete the task and resume your work. Yes, how could I have a boy like you? Nick is a masterpiece, smart and attractive. You are merely a flawed product. Such as this. Dad showed me a defective goods with his hand. He then tossed it in the garbage. He seemed to be discarding me. Years went by. It was my 30th birthday. Despite attending a reputable institution and graduating from a private middle and high school, Nick chose to stay at home instead of looking for work. He was just a jobless college graduate to me. I don't have to work because I'm learning how to profit from stocks. However, there's no assurance that it will work, is there? Nope, it will be easy with my intellect. Bro, just be quiet. Oh, I see. Even after graduating from college, my brother continued to spend his time at home doing nothing productive. However, my parents didn't chastise him. Instead, they stated, in a casual tone, he'll make it big someday. It was pointless to say anything to them, but I didn't think that would ever happen. I therefore chose not to alert my parents. My parents and I were working at the company one morning. As I took on the challenging activities at 30, I felt like my age was catching up with me. I turned to see where the crash was coming from when I heard it all of a sudden. I noticed my dad had passed out. Dad, help, please. Call an ambulance instead. My dad died soon after we got to the hospital, but we called an ambulance right away. A heart attack occurred. Dad had been warned he had a bad heart and was overweight, yet he persisted in his bad habits. He most likely died from a huge heart attack as a result. When Mom let out a loud cry, my brother, who had hurried over, became pale. Oddly enough, though, I felt happy that the one thing that held me back was gone rather than depressed. Perhaps I'm ungrateful, but only someone who grew up with toxic parents would comprehend. I wasn't even depressed throughout the funeral. My mother chastised me for it, calling me the worst son. A week later, Mom gave my brother and I a call. I need to talk to you, so please sit down. All right. Now that your father is gone, we must consider the business. You will take over the business, Nick. Your worthless brother has been sacked as of right now. How come? You understand? Nick will now be in charge of the business. Well, but I'd like to continue researching stocks. Only you have the right to be president, I beg you. Mom, if you ask like that, I can't say no. However, is it possible for me to study stocks in my spare time? Obviously. Hold on a second. After all of my hard work for this company, you're sacking me and appointing Nick as the new president. It's not fair. What were your thoughts? You might be the president. Your education is limited to middle school. You can't possibly be the president. Keep me from laughing. An education from middle school. However, it was you and Dad that forced me to drop out of high school. You can't make fun of me for that. You have no right to speak to me in that manner. You were born to me. How can you say things like that to me? But enough. You're going out of this house. You are not needed by us. Everything she said left me stunned. This is how I was treated after putting in as much labor as a worker ant for the corporation. When she claimed to have given birth to me, I couldn't handle it. I didn't want to think like a child, even at my age, but I believed that parents shouldn't say things like, I gave birth to you, or I raised you. I didn't appreciate the patronizing, I did this for you mentality because having kids is a way to feel good about yourself. I wouldn't want to say such things to my children if I ever had some. I made the decision to leave the house after my mother told me so much. I returned to my room, gathered my belongings, and made the decision to bring only the necessities. I thought I could remain at a business hotel while I looked for an apartment, but I had nowhere specific to go. I left the house and checked into a business hotel in the area. It felt calm in the room without my mother and brother. Nobody was around to annoy me or say hurtful things. I was thinking about my classmate Jake while I relaxed in my room. I wanted to know how he was doing. I called him since I hadn't spoken to him in a while. Hi, Jake. What's going on over there? Well, the factory where I was employed just closed. How come? In actuality, I was fired from the corporation after my father passed away. Your father passed away? Yes, but oddly, I didn't feel depressed. Does that imply that I am a horrible son? You said that your parents were unjust to you and always disapproved of you. Perhaps it makes sense. What did you do after being expelled then? My mother fired me and announced that she was handing the business over to my brother. She then evicted me from the house as well, although I suppose it was time for me to go anyhow. I understand. Hey, how about we get started together? Hey, let's create our own business from the ground up. But is that really possible? Indeed. Come on, let's do it. So I summoned Jake to a coffee shop. There, we discussed a wide range of topics. Jake stated that he would really benefit if our business turned a significant profit. He had to work to support his mother because she was still not feeling well. We made plans because, fortunately, I had a good amount of money saved. We first found a place to live. We got everything in order after speaking with a lawyer Jake knew. We worked fast, and soon our business was up and running. My family's business was directly across the street from mine, and it had a large, eye-catching sign. When I entered and left the building, my brother and mother were taken aback. Is this place being rented by you? That's correct. But isn't this place really expensive for rent? We can afford it because we have raised enough money. How did you attain the funds? From YouTube. Stories I shared on toxic parents received a lot of views. Wait, are you referring to me? Perhaps. This location and this enormous sign were mentioned in an interview with the industry. Yes, it is a publishing company for comics. I was aware of it. I'm confident in my ability to generate ideas, but I'm not very good at writing or painting. As a child, I always liked comics and aspired to be a comics artist, but I was a lousy sketcher. After that, I considered writing novels, but I wasn't very good at it either. Despite my best efforts, I could only write at an elementary school level. However, I was always the one coming up with ideas for theater class since I was skilled at coming up with them. I had to drop out of middle school and gave up on my dream of attending an art school and pursuing a creative profession. However, I came to the realization that academic background is irrelevant. I knew it was feasible without a degree because my favorite YouTuber, who does graphics, also dropped out of middle school. I posted controversial content to make money because I didn't want to be a YouTuber myself, and it gained some attention. I assumed they must have a lot of free time, yet there were condescending and trollish comments. I appreciate you watching, and I continued to post. I launched a comics publishing company with the money I made. My company published comics, but they weren't the same as comics for boys or girls. Our area of expertise was ladies' comics, which are well liked by housewives. The majority of our works were based on my ideas, although typically women would come up with the stories or the authors would start from fresh. The media took notice when word spread that a man was creating these dramatic, female-focused plots. I didn't reveal my identity, but the business gained notoriety very fast. Abandoned by toxic parents. Jessica's Revenge, our first single, was a big hit. Jessica, the main character, was working at the start of the novel after dropping out of middle school and being taken advantage of by her parents. It struck a profound chord with readers. You're the president of this company, so you were behind those weird comics. Yeah, they're my passionate creations. What a jerk you are. I become the villainous sister character because of you. I never said the character was based on you. It's not slander or defamation. Anyone who sees it can tell it's me, so don't act foolish. No one can tell it's you because I didn't make it that clear. Furthermore, shouldn't you be the one concerned about being sued for slander and defamation? What do you mean? I appreciate you using your real name to post those horrible remarks on my YouTube channel. I've submitted a disclosure request already. Please wait. I'm happy to have a pal who is a lawyer. Friends are priceless, thanks to Jake. Not at all. What will become of me? I'm not sure. All I know is that you'll most likely be held accountable. Unaware that it was my channel, my brother would boastfully post derogatory remarks like, "The uploader is an idiot." Instead of ignoring it, I made the decision to file the disclosure request as a lesson to him. Individuals who believe they can do anything they want in a world where they can remain anonymous are mistaken. My brother became pale and began to shake. I couldn't help but smile when I thought he might even pee himself. Well, I have a meeting with a comics artist, so I'll get going. Wait, Steve. I need to go earn even more cash. I'm so busy. I went into the office, ignoring my mother. A comics artist met with Jake and me. I gave her the concept for her next piece because she was a fresh artist and did a fantastic job creating dramatic scenarios. You're quite skilled at generating ideas, Tom. I look up to you because I struggle with it, but I rely on the comics artists since I'm not good at drawing or writing. Writers were even hired to create the YouTube content. That channel attracted a lot of interest. People enjoy dramatic tales, don't they? Indeed, it demonstrates how anxious people are these days. People who enjoy dramatic fiction may be coping with personal hardship. Our responsibility is to assist them in letting go of that tension. Life in the modern world is undoubtedly stressful. You've been really helpful, Jake. You're quite good at picking up on details and identifying errors fast. I did work at a printing factory, though. I struggle with details since I'm a big-picture person. I'm not very good at finding errors because of this, but Jake makes up for it. Jake's expertise at identifying typos and errors stems from his previous employment at a printing facility. There haven't been any misprints yet. It would have been a disservice to our readers if we had. Since our publishing house is still small, we must gradually build up a track record in order to get credibility. For this reason, we take great care to ensure that our comics are error-free. My brother has to deal with the fallout ever since. He received a fine for both slander and defamation. Although it wasn't much, my brother was unable to pay and knelt down to ask for pardon. That fool made poor stock investments and lost a lot of money. I told him we wouldn't need the police or attorneys if begging worked because I didn't intend to forgive him. Our family business eventually filed for bankruptcy. The reason for this was that my brother invested in stocks using money from the company. This wouldn't have occurred if he hadn't made such foolish decisions. However, I was no longer obligated to assist him. I made the decision to live without a family. But I had an important experience when I was 33. A 28-year-old woman approached us while I was searching for new comics creators. She had submitted her work to a number of publications, but had not heard back. After seeing our work, she decided to attempt making dramatic ladies comics, even though she had been hesitant about it. Retaliation was not the only theme in our works. The protagonist's happiness was the most important aspect. In essence, it was a Cinderella tale, and comics of this kind were gaining popularity. Although I didn't watch many dramas, I had heard that Korean dramas frequently have this structure. I began studying Korean dramas since Korean idols, cosmetics, and dramas were popular among women in their 20s. They proved to be quite helpful, and I was inspired to write The Ugly Duckling Who Became a Princess After Plastic Surgery. Indeed, the protagonist's transformation in Korea works effectively since Korean cosmetic surgery and makeup are well known. Yeah, I thought it would be interesting if everyone treated her differently when she returned to the States. I'd want a scene where everyone turns to look at her. I understand. She gets so stunning that people gasped. Although she should be first portrayed as extremely ugly to the point of being pathetic, she has a good-hearted and caring nature. Comprehensive. The bullies should have a mediocre appearance, not exceptionally attractive, but not unattractive either. Oh, and the protagonist should also have liposuction. Yes, I am aware of folks who have had liposuction in Korea. She could then get into amazing shape. She could make a lot of money and become a famous hostess. Then her nasty old classmates might become clients. That sounds great, but she doesn't reveal her identity as they hit on her without realizing who she is. How about that? Jake, that's a fantastic concept. It's fascinating. Regards. Do you think some mature scenes would be a good addition? Women in their 30s are the target audience for this. Sure, something for working women who are tired from their jobs. Exactly. Women who are frustrated are motivated to continue after reading the ending. Not only to exact retribution, but also because the protagonist finds happiness on her own. I got it. I'll try it out. Excited, Emily, the artist, produced The Ugly Duckling, who underwent plastic surgery and became a princess. Sarah, the amiable but incredibly ugly main character, is a victim of bullying. She is regularly made fun of by her high school peers since she is not only fat, but also ugly. The lads dislike her, and when she writes a letter to one of them confessing her love, he discards it. After being devastated, Sarah puts in a lot of work and goes to Korea by herself. She has full-body plastic surgery there. She undergoes liposuction, has her jaw, eyes, and nose altered, and becomes a lovely beauty. She is so stunning that she gets a double take at the airport when she returns to the United States. Sarah becomes the best hostess by using her beauty. She quickly reconnects with her old classmates and eventually finds her true love. Our little publishing business expanded dramatically, and the comic became a success. In the end, a well-known actress played Sarah in the TV drama adaptation of the comic. They depicted her ugly and gorgeous hostess phases using special effects. As a token of appreciation for her efforts, I took Emily to AAL. I was happy that I invited Emily out, and she loved spending time with me. We started dating more and grew closer to one another. My desire to tell Emily how I felt grew stronger as I got to know her more. But Emily had graduated from an art university, and I had dropped out of high school. I made the brave decision to come clean, even though I didn't think she would be interested in someone like me. I got the confidence I needed when Jake told me to go for it if I liked her. Emily, there's something I want to tell you. What is it? I want you to seriously consider our future together. Are you saying that you were thinking about marriage? Indeed. Despite my lack of knowledge and my middle school dropout status, I want to be with you going forward. Emily, I can't lie to myself any longer. Please take my request to date seriously, since I would love to marry you in the future. I'm grateful. The same thing has been my desire. What? I'd be happy to be more than just work partners with you. Emily happily agreed to my suggestion. I was glad that I had voiced my emotions. Everyone follows their own route in life, according to Emily, who didn't mind that I dropped out of middle school. The fact that Emily was my girlfriend made me happy and thankful. After that, we got married. That was when I was 34. Although my brother and parents were not present for the wedding, our staff members and Jake, my business partner and close friend, joined in the celebration. Above all, I was pleased to have Emily's parents accept me. Though she had trouble coming up with ideas, Emily kept up her hard work as a comic artist, even after she married me. I believed she had a great deal of creativity, and her artwork was superb. She created engaging imagery. Emily's artwork and my story ideas were used to make a number of pieces. In addition, Jake fostered and managed numerous talents. Our business expanded gradually and gained recognition in the market for women's comics. Emily seemed ill just before my 35th birthday. She added, "Actually, I've been told I'm expecting," which made me wonder whether it was something she ate. What? We are expecting a child. You're going to be a father. Me? A dad? Indeed. You will become a father. I'm overjoyed. That's incredible. I was so emotional that I raised Emily up. I placed my ear to her tummy, imagining the baby growing and moving inside her even though I couldn't hear anything yet. I looked forward to seeing our child every day and was thrilled to meet them. Then Emily went into labor when I was 35. After giving it her all, Emily gave birth to a healthy boy. I was crying as I held him because I couldn't believe such a lovely little creature existed. My life was no longer solely mine from this point on. For my wife, Emily, and our baby, I had to live my best life. Whatever difficulties we faced, I knew I could bear them for their benefit. This was my pride as a father and my resolve as a man. Despite having toxic parents as a youngster, I was concerned about whether I could really love my child. However, I believe I'm doing all right. Although raising a child is undoubtedly difficult, I am filled with love as I see him develop every day. My brother and I were treated very differently by our parents, and I never understood why. Yes, they probably liked my brother more since he was smarter and more charming. However, I am aware that I could never choose to forsake one child over the other, even if we have another. I'll try to be the greatest parent I can be and use my parents as an example of what not to do, even if one of them seemed less capable. Emily and I intend to help each other raise our child because we both work. Additionally, Jake met a girlfriend, and the two of them intend to tie the knot shortly. I envision a society in which people who persevere through adversity are ultimately rewarded.